Hey YouTube, KJ here. So on the table today we have the Spyderco Sage 5. So as always, I'll be sharing my thoughts and opinions about this knife to help you make a decision. And if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for additional content. So let's get to it. Starting off with some size comparisons. So the Sage 5 comes in at 7.1 inches overall with a blade length of 3 inches. And here it is against the PM2, which comes in at 8.3 inches, blade length of 3.5 inches. And here it is against the Para 3, which is 7.3 inches overall, and similarly with a 3-inch blade. So as you can see, the Sage is very similar in profile to the Para 3, right? Moving on to some Civivi. So here it is against the Civivi Praxis, which is 8.5 inches overall, with a blade length of 3.75 inches. And here it is against the Civivi Elementum, which comes in at 7 inches overall with a 3-inch blade length. Alright, so again, very similar to the profile of the Civivi Elementum. Alright, let's get those out of the way. So moving on to aesthetics. This one hails from the Spyderco Taichung Taiwan factory, so the fit and finish is second to none. For those of you who don't know, the Taichung factory Spyderco churns out I guess, the best quality knives that they have in production. As you can see here, the branding on the blade, that's made in Taichung, Taiwan. Over here, it's just the Spyderco CPM S30V. On the blade, you have the usual Spyderco logo and the spider hole for your opening and deployment. All right. The scales are carbon fiber laminate on G10. So very controversial material, this one. It's very polarizing. A lot of people either just love it or hate it. Me, I don't mind. I mean, it looks good. It looks great. Saves up on some cost since it's not full carbon fiber. Gives you a little bit of finesse and still with the rigidity of G10 without upping the cost. So yeah, it's fine by me. On the hardware, you have T8 screws overall here in the pivot, T8 screws at the body screw and on the clip screw. So awesome news for folks who like disassembling knives. Very little lanyard hole over here, which I like. Not a big fan of lanyards, so I'd actually prefer they remove the lanyard holes altogether, because you can always tie up a lanyard onto the standoffs, right? I mean, it's always an option. So on the clip side, you have the Spyderco wire clip, which I really like. Why? Because it's a simple utilitarian clip. I mean, it works, it looks great, it doesn't steal the thunder of the beauty of your scale, because you can see through it. Yeah, I mean, comparing it to, what do I have? So, like this one that covers the view of the scales behind it, this one you really appreciate the beauty of your scales. So the Sage lineup of Spyderco varies really in the lock types. It's the line that I guess honors the different significant lock types that came out in pocket knives throughout the years. So the Sage 5 is a compression lock. So what that is there's a piece of the liner that sort of locks into place whenever you deploy the knife, and there's a tang that falls in between the back of the blade and the stop pin. So how it works is when the forces want to fold the knife down, the tang would force the liner to be compressed against the stop pin. So essentially, it's a very sturdy lock. So far, there have been 6 Sages released. Sage 1 being a liner lock, Sage 2 being a frame lock, the Sage 3 being a bolt lock, Sage 4 being a back lock, Sage 5, this one being a compression lock, and the Sage 5 lightweight, which is, I guess, very similar to the Sage 5, it's just that it's using FRN scales. Alright, the other thing I wanted to point out was the blade. Again, this is made of S30V steel, so that's good to go. If you notice the finish on the blade, you see distinct grind lines. I don't know if the camera can capture it, but yeah, there, if you can see, there are distinct grind lines moving up and down on the blade, which I think is a very nice and interesting finish. I've noticed that a lot of the Spyderco Taichung blades come out with that finish, comparing it to the Para 3, for example, that just has a glossy satin finish, or semi-glossy satin finish, I guess. You don't see the detail of the grind lines as compared to those from the Taichung factory, which I think is really nice. It puts a nice, I guess, look and feel to the blade overall. So that is for aesthetics. Moving on to usage. So the one thing where the Sage line really shines is ergonomics. This is by far the most ergonomic Spyderco or overall all pocket knives I've ever handled. To be honest, this has the best ergonomics. I mean, it just fits in your hand. So over here you see your pinky falls right over there, and there's still enough room for a little ramp, and so you feel really secure in that the knife's not going to slip out of your hands, especially when you're choking up here, and your middle finger falls into that groove over there. So very, very nice ergonomics on this one. The scales are smooth and rounded on the edges, so there's no sharp edges to speak of. Like I said, this was G10 with carbon fiber laminate, so you can see kind of see where the G10 ends and the carbon fiber begins. And in terms of deployment, the Spidey hole really makes it easy. You can open it with your thumb, flick it back down, reverse flick it. You can even do that. Oops, missed that one. So, let's try that again. There you go. So, yeah, I mean, it works. And the last thing I want to point out about Spyderco knives usage is the owners really take pride in saying that knives are made to use and not to look at, because it's a really different look, right, compared to a traditional pocket knife. Like the aluminum is what a traditional pocket knife should look like. Comparing to that, it's a totally different take on what a pocket knife should look like. But where it really shines is when you use a Spyderco. If you notice the lines when your hand is straight or vertical or parallel, I guess, to your cutting surface, your blade is pointed downwards. So what that means is when you're against your cutting surface and you put your knuckles flat on the surface, your knife is on the surface as well. So it makes it really easy for the cutting without hurting your knuckles. Comparing that versus a traditional knife like the aluminum, where if your knuckles is against the cutting surface, your blade is also above the surface. So you kind of have to angle and rock downwards. So a little bit less conducive compared to using a Spyderco knife. All right. Last but not least is this fidgetable? Well, most compression locks are. The only thing that the Sage does not really shine at is its action. I mean, it works. I mean, you can flick it open, you can flick it close, flick it open, flick it close. But it does take a bit of wrist action to get it to close properly, compared to Para 3, for example, where if you release a compression lock, your blade just falls shut. This one, when you deploy it and release the compression lock, it just stays there. So you kind of need to flick it down a little bit with your wrist in order to open and close. Not to say that it's not smooth, it's just that it's not drop shut compared to most of the compression knives that Spyderco releases in its lineup. I know the Sage 5 Lightweight has a CQI version where the pivot is there's a pivot collar that makes the blade a lot smoother and drop shutty from what I've heard. I have yet to get one, and I'll post a review once I have it. But yeah, if you don't mind the FRN scales, then in action is a big thing for you, then maybe the Sage 5 Lightweight would be the better option. So, final thoughts. I like the Sage line. I mean, it has a nice look to it. The leaf-shaped blade appeals to me in that it's very symmetrical. Like again, comparing to the Para 3, where the look is a lot more, I guess, aggressive. This one is a nice look and feel to it. Again, the ergonomics are fantastic. It's the best ergonomics I've had in any pocket knife that I've ever handled. It's just the action. If the action were drop shut compared to the Para 3, this would be a perfect EDC knife for me. I love the compression lock. I love the fact that All the screws on this knife are T8, so it's easy to maintain. The fit and finish is, again, fantastic. It coming from the Taichung, Taiwan factory. And you can't go wrong with S30V. It's a premium steel. Edge retention and corrosion resistance are very, very good. So in terms of value, the last I checked locally, this knife came in for in about 8,900 pesos to about close to 10,000 Philippine pesos, depending on where you buy it. And if you choose to get it from the US, it comes in about $164. So it's a little bit on the high side, but you really get what you pay for in terms of the quality, the fit and finish, the materials, and again, the ergonomics of this wonderful knife. So hope this review has been helpful for you, and thank you.